You've been massing for months and building muscle, and now you're ready to cut. But jumping straight into a deficit could sabotage your gains. Here's why a maintenance phase might be the smartest move you're not making. I'm a coach, and I help people get big, strong, and lean. And I consistently find that taking a 4 to 8 week maintenance phase after a massing phase really makes dieting so much easier and more effective. So why take a maintenance phase? Firstly, and perhaps most importantly, it can provide a psychological break. Massing can be really mentally demanding. You're tracking all your meals, you're making sure you're getting in your macros at all times. A maintenance phase can give you a break for that. Maybe you can eat intuitively, or at least in a less structured way, and it can give you more freedom. It can let you feel like you're not tied to the scale or your Tupperware for a brief period of time, and that can really help to alleviate the burden of bodybuilding. Secondly, if you've been massing a long time, your hunger cues might be kind of screwed up. You might have been force feeding, you might have been eating more than you really wanted to, and it can be nice to just take a physical reset and get more in touch with your body. By that same token, taking a maintenance phase can help to normalize digestion. If you've really been pounding the food, it's possible you've been experiencing some kind of digestive stress. You might have bloating or constipation or diarrhea, or just kind of feel gross. And taking a maintenance phase before you diet can help to alleviate that stress, help your body heal, and make you feel ready before you diet. I also think that taking a maintenance phase can just improve adherence during the diet, because you're going to be less stressed and fatigued entering your diet phase. You'll have had a little bit of a break, a psychological break, maybe even a slight training break, and so when you enter the diet, you're going to be more ready to comply. You won't have been following strict rules for a long period of time, and so your mind is just a bit more flexible and open to a new structure. It can really help get you the results you need. From a health perspective, taking a maintenance phase can be vital too. Again, you've probably been slamming calories and eating a lot of food, and so your hormones are going to be out of whack. Your leptin and your ghrelin, the hormones that dictate satiety and dictate hunger, are probably skewed, and giving yourself some time to go back to baseline will really help from a physiological perspective. Secondly, you've probably been experiencing some amount of bloating or water retention. So if you take that time to just let your body settle, let that weight settle, the water weight will dissipate and you'll feel better. You'll feel lighter on your toes, your sleep will probably improve, and your look will improve. So you have a better sense of what your goals are before you enter into that diet phase. You might be leaner or fatter than you thought you were, and letting that water weight and that inflammation dissipate will give you a much clearer understanding of where your current body composition is and what you need to do to change and improve that during your cut. We have a broad understanding of the causes of muscular hypertrophy, of muscle growth. At this point, we think that tension is the primary driver of muscle growth. But there are different theories about how long muscle growth takes and if it's something that's immediate or delayed. If you've been training for a long time, or if you're a coach like me, you'll notice weird patterns in people's muscle growth and strength gains. People will have spurts, they'll have growth spurts. They'll go through periods of time where gains are steady or maybe even stagnant, and then they'll experience a kind of rush of gains. And it's not entirely clear why that happens. It's been hypothesized that the body takes time to lay down the structures necessary to build muscle. So perhaps there's sarcoplasmic hypertrophy which occurs, and then later on real type 2 fiber hypertrophy happens. I don't know, I don't want to claim that. But I will say this, taking a maintenance phase can give you the opportunity to finish the gains from your previous massing phase. It might not happen, I'm not promising that, but if you take that 4 to 8 week period and sort of lock in your gains, it's possible you'll continue to accrue some muscle during that period of time. So even if your training is a little less intense and you're eating a little bit less food, you might actually experience some body recomposition during your maintenance phase. For enhanced athletes, a maintenance phase can be crucial. Enhanced athletes typically run supraphysiological doses of anabolic compounds almost year-round. While they're gaining mass, they're taking those compounds, and while they're cutting, they're also taking those compounds. So if they're always going from gaining to cutting, cutting to gaining, gaining to cutting, etc., there's no break. There's no time in which there's something like a physiological normal. So a maintenance phase becomes almost necessary because a maintenance phase gives these athletes the opportunity and the time to return to normal baseline health. As an enhanced athlete, your maintenance phase is really a health phase. You're trying to get back to normal. You need to have your lipid values stabilized. Perhaps your hematocrit has become elevated. Perhaps your insulin sensitivity has been declining, and you need all of these blood markers, all of these values to return to baseline. I know this sounds like scientific jargon and doesn't matter, but the truth is, if your body is inflamed, if your body is unhealthy, it's going to be much harder for you to make progress. So if you take that time where you reestablish your health parameters, you will actually make better gains during your cut and the subsequent massing phase to follow. So generally speaking, enhanced athletes should return to some kind of a baseline dosage during a maintenance period. More advanced athletes, high-level bodybuilders, probably never go down to a physiological normal because they just carry too much muscle mass, and so their normal is no longer normal in comparison to someone else. Additionally, advanced athletes might leverage peptides and other substances during a health period to just try to eke out a little bit more gains. Particularly for an enhanced lifter, your health period doesn't have to be a time in which you take a step back. It actually still might be an opportunity to make gains, just at a slower pace. So then how should you structure a maintenance phase? What should you actually do? There are two primary things that need to happen during your maintenance phase. One, you should seek to be at or around your maintenance calories. That doesn't mean that you're going to be weight stable, however, as remember, you may be shedding water-weighted inflammation, so your weight may decrease. Nonetheless, you want to seek to be around what you think your maintenance is. For some athletes, that means eating intuitively, staying away from the scale, staying away from macro tracking apps, and just eating. However, if you're not someone who's comfortable with that, of course some tracking is still okay. It's really about what works for your psychology. That's the real key here with this maintenance phase. You're trying to reduce overall stress. So you want to drop things that cause you stress and anxiety. So if tracking causes you stress, don't do it. But if freely eating causes you anxiety, don't do that either. You want to find ways to reduce your stress as much as possible during this period of time. And secondly, to that point, you want to reduce the difficulty of your training. I typically find that the most effective strategy here is to reduce training volume, because volume tends to be the biggest driver of fatigue. I'm not suggesting you train like a power lifter just because you're a bodybuilder, but you might consider doing half or even a third of the sets you typically do. You're not going to lose muscle during this period of time, and it will let you feel better. You'll shed fatigue, your joints are going to feel better, those aches and pains are going to go away. And I will say for me in particular and for my clients, I really like to use a maintenance phase to improve cardiovascular fitness. I like to have people focus on low intensity, steady state, low impact cardio, things like elliptical, and then maybe do some high intensity interval training once or twice a week. I want to improve their baseline cardiovascular fitness as well as that upper end, because that upper end really matters for lifting. If you can get good at high-intensity interval training, weightlifting will feel like a breeze, and a maintenance phase can be a really good opportunity to lock in those cardiovascular improvements, which will pay dividends throughout your cut and beyond. Depending on your goals and timeline, your maintenance phase may last 4 weeks and beyond. Particularly if you're an enhanced bodybuilder, you should get blood tests and use those blood tests to determine how long your health or your maintenance phase should be. As you exit your maintenance phase and enter into a diet, you're going to find that transition is pretty easy because you're going to be feeling good and your stress is going to be low. I just encourage you to not start out with too aggressive of a deficit. Particularly if you've not been tracking during your maintenance period, you may be eating more or less than you realize. So you might need to take a week or two to really calibrate that deficit and dive in. Thanks so much for watching. Are you cutting or massing? What are you thinking about doing next? Let me know in the comments. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Appreciate you.